And it's not just me here. It's not just Pastor Ben, but we have another pastor in our midst. I'm playing a little Shaolin in the background. If you really want to hoop it up or something like that, you can listen to some Shaolin in the background. But I'm listening, or I'm looking at the one and only Pastor Bryan from South Carolina, played football at Clemson, is the student pastor at First Baptist Enterprise. Bryan, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. We've been doing a little bit of homeschooling this morning, but thankfully I'm done with the morning session. So yay!
Yeah, that's cool. Hold on, let me plug so I can hear you a little better. Let me plug my little earbuds in. You can see that both Pastor Bryan and I have poor man earbuds. We don't
Yes.
have the
No.
earbuds.
And it's been really interesting for us because the student ministry has been going live all the time. And it's really funny to be wearing these and see students on the other side of the video chat wearing AirPods.
Yeah, well, not everybody can be awesome, but we
That's
try
right.
to be. We try to be. Hey, man, I just want to say I'm so thankful to be working with you. We've worked together for now almost
7 years.
7 years. Oh, no. So you, how long have you been there? Is it as long as
I
you've been
got there the end of May, beginning of June of 2013.
there? Okay. Yeah. So, it's a long time to work with somebody, especially in student ministry, because the turnover rate in student ministry is probably probably one of the
Oh,
highest turnover rates of any occupation out there.
it's 18 to 24 months. It's still, and like that's what it's been for
That's
10
wild.
years. It's crazy.
Well, I tell you, part of me, I was once a youth pastor, and we've talked about this quite a bit. But part of me will always be a youth pastor at heart. I loved my time in youth ministry. Loved my pastor I worked with. Just I loved my students. They're awesome. Still keep up with some of them. Some of them are in ministry now. Some of them are in prison now. So we hit a wide spectrum of folks, but very thankful for you and your ministry. And I want to talk about something that I think a lot of people are wondering, and that is what are we to expect of this next generation? I know a lot of our listeners have children and grandchildren, and there's some concerns, and I think there's some major concerns with just how the world is going in terms of what is seen as right and good and true. Something that would have been just unacceptable, even not even like a few decades ago, but a few years ago. Like, it just seems like
Right.
things are changing at such a rapid pace with you think about transgenderism and just some of the issues that become just the air we breathe now. And so this next generation, I think a lot of people are rightly concerned out of love. And so I feel like you are on the front lines. You really have a pulse on the next generation. And I'd just like to hear from you. What are some of your challenge, or from what you see, what are some of the challenges? If you had to name like the top challenge of the next generation, and then what are some of the hopes and encouragements that you have about this next generation? What's the top one? Like, if you had to name the top one of the challenge and the hope, what are they?
I think, I'm going to start with a general challenge. One of the issues that we have in the church right now is a lot of people don't understand what the next generation is. I think a lot of people think that the next generation are millennials, and that's not true.
Yeah,
Um,
millennials are adults now, aren't
oh
they?
yeah, they're all like so. The youngest millennial right now has already graduated from college, more than likely.
Mm.
So the next generation for us, they're called Gen Z. And they are, and when you start talking about generations, depending on what study you read, some of the years are cut off. I mean, it's even Ben and I, we were born in 1980. So Ben was born in June.
Such a great year.
Yeah, June, correct?
That's
And
right,
I was
man.
born in
Well
December.
done.
So,
So
uh,
we're
so
we're old people.
we are. So depending on what study you read, either Ben and I are at the end of Gen X, which is what I consider myself to be, or we're at the beginning of the millennial generation.
Yeah,
I'm
don't
not a
call us a
millennial.
millennial.
That's
No, don't call
exactly
us a
right.
millennial.
I'm not a millennial. Pastor Caleb is a millennial.
That's right.
But the study that I hold to is they say that Gen X ends in 1984. Millennials end in 1994. So if you were born between 1995 and 2010, you are Gen Z. There is a generation that is already being born after them, but the problem that we have is they haven't been named because we can't study them yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because the youngest of that generation is 10 years old. So the crazy thing is, I actually have a Gen Z living in my house because Henry was born in 2009. So Henry is part of the generation of all of our students that we have in the student ministry right now.
Wow.
So that's one of the issues that we have is a lot of people continue to refer to millennials, but that's not the next generation. It's Gen Z.
So when we're talking about next generation, we and who you're dealing with right now, who you're working with, we're not talking about millennials. We're talking about Gen Z.
Right. So those are people. Okay. So right now, the oldest Gen Z person was born in 95. So if you do the math, the oldest Gen Z person is 25, and the youngest is 10, 9 or 10, depending on when their birthday is right now. So so we're looking at college students, a few people that have already graduated from college, but mainly college students, high school students, junior high and older elementary school is what we're looking at. So 4th grade through graduated from college in the last year. Okay. So that's the next generation. This generation, one of the greatest challenges of them is they called the millennial generation the digital natives. So the millennials, the ones that are in their mid to late 20s and early 30s now, they were the ones that grew up with technology. They may not have understood it all, but they could figure it out because they grew up with it. Gen Z is the connected generation because they're the ones that not just grew up with technology, but they're the ones that have grown up connected to technology. So a lot of their relationships, a lot of their interactions are online. And I think a lot of times we think that because they connect online so much, that's the only way that we can connect with them. But Gen Z is a very lonely generation. They are very isolated, even though they are very connected through technology and through social media and through the internet. They are lonely because this generation doesn't know how to have face-to-face interaction. And even if they do, they do it with a very small group of people. Like I can remember in high school, I had a huge friend group. Now I was close with a few of them, but like we interacted all the time. That's not this generation. You'll see them, they are content to take their phone and go and stay in their bedroom because they can connect all they want on there, but they are very lonely. And for the church, we have to ask ourselves, how do we connect with them? How do we create community with them? How do we show them that they are a valued part of the church? Because I think a lot of times as older adults, and I mean, that's me. Ben and you and I both turned 40 years old this year. You in just a couple of months.
I'm actually working backwards now. So we're 39.
We're headed back down the hill.
Yeah. I'm not hitting 40. No.
But I mean, a lot of times when you see somebody that's in Gen Z, you see them walking around like this. And it's scary. You don't want to interact with them because they're always looking at a screen. And one of the challenges for us is figuring out as a church, not just as a student ministry, but as a church, how do we connect with them?
Yeah.
Because this generation doesn't know the Bible. They don't know Jesus in general. There are more atheists percentage-wise in Gen Z than there are in any generation that came before them. Barna has done studies, and over 20% of Gen Z will freely tell you that they're an atheist.
Going back to your comment on on community, I guess is
Yeah.
what we'd call it.
Yeah.
You don't know how to connect, true community. What does that actually look like? And we've seen it even with adults that you can get addicted to these things
Right.
here. And I read a great book. You and I have talked about it, so I know you read it too. But it's I think it's either 10 or 12 ways that 12 ways your phone is changing you by Tony Reinke. I read it.
It's incredible.
In a deer stand one deer season a couple years ago, and man, it was so incredible. It was so incredible. And
let me just give a plug. Read the book. Go buy it on Kindle.
Yeah.
Whatever. Read the book.
Yeah, read that book, 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You by Tony Reinke. Now, what's so great about it is that he recognizes that, even right what we're doing right here and what we're able to do through on Sunday mornings, because we can't gather right now because of COVID-19, we're able to utilize technology and redeem it for God glorifying purposes. So it's not like technology is completely bad. It's just that, it's like with any other gift, if it's wrongly used, if it's distorted, it can lead to bad things. It can lead, in so many different ways. And one of those, and so it just takes great responsibility. But one of those ways is just a lack of community. We can have a veneer of we're connected, but we're not really connected. And being made to the image of God, we are all made for community. We're made for fellowship. We want to be around people, and we need that. And so if we can figure that out, so that's a great challenge. I think that's a challenge for the next generation. It's a challenge for parents and grandparents, and trying to figure out how do we encourage and equip our people to actually experience authentic community.
Right.
What's a hope that you see? What's something that you see that encourages you about this next generation?
And the funny thing is, come here. You wanted to get in the video. Come here. Okay,
who's that? Is that Henry?
That's Caleb. Oh, it's Caleb. Caleb keeps coming over like right here, right off screen.
I went and had a talk with my children, and I said, if anybody comes in this room, then you will officially be embarrassed.
The problem we have is that they're used to being able to be a part of student ministry live streams. So it's like, hey, we just want to come and see what's happening. The funny thing is for us is on March 8th, we had Student Sunday, and then everything fell apart. Like the normal rhythms of the church got completely interrupted with COVID-19. But for us, like it was great for us because of two things. One, students got to see that there are opportunities for them to serve, not just on stage, but even, man, just greeting at the door and passing out bulletins. Just being able to do that, being able to work the welcome tents that are at the Welcome Center and around there, so being able to do that. And then the other side of that's the church seeing that, because that's part of the issue for this generation is they feel like nobody understands them. They feel like nobody, like that they don't really connect to the church. And I'm not saying our students specifically, but I'm saying this generation in general. And I think that's the thing is we have to foster intergenerational community and service. And that's my hope for them, is that they are open to that. They just want the church to be open to it on the other side as well.
Yeah. And that's what I think. I think genuine Christians want that.
Right.
And I mean, when you see that in Titus 2, that older men poured into younger men, older women poured into younger women, I think every genuine Christian really wants that. A lot of times it's just trying to figure out, how do you actually make that happen? I've talked to countless people that say, I wish an older woman would disciple me, or I wish an older man would disciple me. At the same time, I talk to older men and women that say, I wish I had somebody to disciple. Right. That's part of the church. That's part of our job, is trying to connect that. It's always a challenge to do. But it's funny. I feel like every generation bemoans the next generation.
Right.
And so we can hear that, we can see that. But I do think that getting them out and serving I think not only builds credibility among older generations, but also it teaches them that, hey, you are a valued part of this church.
Right.
We want you here. We don't want you to sit on the sidelines until you get in your 30s and then you try to figure it out from there. We want you to serve, and we want to train you and equip you even now. Here's something that you and I have talked about too. Years ago, Christian Smith, he's I think he's a sociologist from Notre Dame. He's a professor at Notre Dame. He wrote a book. He's written several books, but this one particular one is called Soul Searching. He did an extensive research. And of course, this would have been probably, 10 years ago, maybe even more than that. But I don't think much has changed. I think there's still a certain sense in this. And that is, he did a huge research among teenagers in youth groups, and the consensus was that he came up with something or a phrase that he coined called moralistic therapeutic deism. And the idea is, moralistic part is the gospel is just a change of behavior. It's hey, be a moral person, a good person. Therapeutic is God is like a therapist to you. He wants you to experience your best you and be okay. And he wants to give you soft, nice words. And then deism is like, he comes in, he jumps in when he needs to, but for the most part, he's checked out, he's backed up, and he just is a cheerleader for you, rooting you on. Now, tell me about, I hear that, and I chalk it up as what we often call cultural Christianity, where we wear the jersey, but we have no relationship with Christ. We've said the phrases, we know certain phrases, but we don't really have a relationship with Christ.
Right.
And so that's what cultural Christianity is. We could go into all kind of definitions about that, but I hear those kind of things and I feel like, yeah, that's a lot of what I saw when I was growing up. I mean, I saw in youth group and things like that. And a lot of it's just trying to navigate through the call of grace and understanding of grace. And then also the commitment to faith without works is dead. And so we want to, do good things and we want to refrain from sin. But so I understand that there's a tension there that has to be worked out and that takes time. But let me, here it is, 2020. Do you see, I feel like in youth group culture, I saw a lot of cultural Christianity. Do you still see that? And if so, what does it look like? And how do we fight against? Because I know a burden of my heart and your heart is to push back against cultural Christianity and hold up genuine, authentic Christianity. So where do you see it anymore? And if so, how do we push back against that?
So one of the hallmarks of Gen Z is that they are driven to succeed in whatever they're doing, whether that's sports or academics or even just life. They're not, as a whole, they are a fairly moral generation. They're ones now I'm not saying, that's a generalization, but that's sort of what sociologists have said. They're not out murdering a bunch of people as a whole. They're a moral generation. So that in and of itself leads to cultural Christianity, because you hear that and you think, okay, well, I'm a good person, because that's essentially the crux of cultural Christianity is, when you ask somebody, how did you get to heaven? Their answer is, well, be a good person. Well, our answer is, believe that you're a sinner and know that the only way that your sin debt was paid was by Jesus's death on the cross. So that's sort of where the rub comes in. Part of the issue that we run into in student ministry is that the average attendance for a family has dropped, where it's now like once a month. So for us, those students that don't attend all that much, but would still tell people, I'm a member of First Baptist and I'm a Christian, regardless of what they truly believe, it's that idea, how do we reach those families? And it's not just the student, it's the whole family. Because, for us, this is the thing that I constantly I'm constantly telling and explaining to people is that when you look at student ministry, depending on if your student ministry starts with 6th grade or starts with 7th grade, it doesn't really matter. And it runs through 12th grade. Well, your 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders can't drive. And only about half of your 10th graders can drive until about the end of the school year. And then you have more. So you're really only looking at 2.5 years worth of people that can drive in your ministry. So how are those people getting to church? Well, their parents are bringing them. Their families are coming, or their mom or dad are just dropping them off. So for us, it's more of a question of how do we reach families? How do we engage families? How do we show families that there's redeeming value in A, believing in Jesus, and B, being a part of the gathering of God's body. And then C, at which the gathering of the body would be on Sunday, and C, why there's value in being a part of the student ministry. And if they have kids, the children's ministry and the adult ministries, and so it's really those three things. It's how do we show them that there's value in believing in Jesus? How do we show them that there's value in actually attending the church, not just having your name on a roll, but showing up and being part of the gathering? And then how do we show them that there's value in ministry? And for us, being in a medium-sized town in the deep South, it's sort of it's a twofold thing. So we do have a lot of cultural Christianity, but we also have a lot of students that have grown up in a house that nobody has talked about Jesus. So that's one of the rubs for us, is how do we reach these students that have heard about Jesus their whole life? They know all the generic Sunday school, kid Bible stories about Noah and about David and Goliath, and they don't really know what they mean, but they can tell you the story. And then how do we reach those and reach the students that have never heard about Jesus or just vaguely know who Jesus is? And if you tried to get them to explain who Buddha was, who Jesus was, and who Muhammad was, they would not really be able to tell you anything.
That's good. Well, you got your hands full. I know you got your work cut out for you. It's a great challenge, but it's exciting too. I had a pastor tell me one time, he said, Ben, always remember there is nothing more thrilling than being a part of shaping the next generation. And that's what you're doing. That's what Zach's doing. And here's the thing. That's not just what y'all are doing. It's not like it's not like First Baptist hires you to go do that to the next generation. That is the ministry of the church. That's the calling of the church. So God has actually called every member of the church to pour into the next generation, or at least to be a part of. So sometimes that can happen directly or indirectly, but we're all a part of this. And one thing that I appreciate about your ministry is that over the past few years, I've seen so many more get involved in student ministry, so many more adults getting involved in student ministry. And, when that's happening, I think it's going to lend itself towards that Titus 2 dynamic that we're really after, that where the older are pouring into the younger. And that's the way it ought to be. That's the way it should be. It's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. Of course, we're running out of time here. So I want to just rapid fire a few questions to you. So what age should a parent get their child a smartphone?
I'm struggling with that right now. Never.
Yeah. Okay.
Never.
That's good.
And if you do, don't let them bring it with them to church.
Yeah, that's right. And we need to have a seminar, I think at some point, on how to silence your ringer.
That's exactly right.
During preaching time.
Oh,
that needs to be a seminar. Let's see. All right. So rapid fire. So never. Yeah. I know there's a lot of.
Yeah,
there's
that's
a lot
a joke. Yeah.
Number two though. Or so your quick answer would be
15 or 16 with proper guardrails.
15 or 16 with proper guardrails, variables, and then you ultimately leave it up to the parent, right? So if you're a 16-year-old and your parent says no still, then you would say amen to the parent.
Amen.
Right?
That's your God-given right.
That's right. So, what age should people start dating, and what should they think about with
I
dating?
mean, yet again, that really is up to the parents, and because that's not one that I can even. Because here's the problem: dating is defined different ways by different people.
How would you define it? What would be a
So,
healthy Christian way to define
in my
dating?
opinion, there's a difference between you allowing your student to go with a group of people to the movies, and there may or may not be someone of the opposite sex there that they have their eye on. That, but I think where you allow them to start going out on their own to do things, just the two of them, that's more of a when they start driving kind of thing. But yet again, guardrails.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we've said sometime by the age of 40, we'll let our daughter start dating. And I mean,
Yeah.
so we're not. It's not like we're being extreme with that. Sometime by the
Right.
age of 40, yeah. So we'll figure that out when they get a little close. Maybe in their
Mhm.
30s, we'll start really navigating through that.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. So another question: what defines binge watching? How many do you have to watch in a row to actually binge watch a show on Netflix?
So I'm gonna give a caveat. I think it depends on how long the show is. If it's
Okay.
an hour-long show, I think 3 hours, so 3 shows. If it's a 25 or 30-minute show, I think you got to get to 4 or 5.
Okay. All right. And then last question: video games were really big now,
Oh
have
yeah.
been for a long time. Obviously, this is nothing new. But how would you, if a parent came to you and said, "Hey, should I get my son or daughter a video game console?" And you just fill in the blank, whatever it may be, that they're really wanting. Number two, what are the boundaries? What are the guardrails that I should put up for that in terms of how often, how long, and then how much interaction, how much freedom in the interaction they have with when they sync up with other people to play these games, and what
So
games and all.
so
What are your guardrails there?
so for us, because it's not just a console, it's games on iPads and games on computers, and
Right.
so we have a limit on device time in our house. And it ebbs and flows a little bit depending on the time of year. Are the kids in school, out of school? Educational device time, which we've had to do now because they're having to do homeschool. The device time has gotten a little bit longer because they're doing schoolwork on it. The great thing about today's world is there are parental controls on just about every device that you can buy for your kids.
Mm.
And what I would say is I don't think a console or a gaming device is a bad buy. We have one in our house. In fact, some people would think I'm the big gamer. Oh no, Jennifer is the gamer. And if she watches this, she's going to kill me, but that's okay. But we enjoy playing games. In fact, we play video games together as a family. We were playing Lego Marvel superheroes the other day. So there's that going on. But I think that what you have to do as a parent, and this is with a phone, with a computer, with anything, is to go in and exercise your control over the parental controls in the device. I think the other thing too is I would spend the money and buy a Wi-Fi system that you as a parent can cut on and off in your house. Like we have a meshed Wi-Fi router system in our house, and I can go into an app on my phone and cut the Wi-Fi off for all the boys' devices at one time. So just say, oh, it's over. And I think that's important to be able to have parental controls over the internet, but also over gaming devices. Talk to your students. I think that's the biggest thing. Is a lot of times, man, we just let them go and sit in their room or sit in the bonus room or the family room where the gaming system is or where their phone is, and just sit there and not ever engage with them. Man, talk to them about what they're playing. Talk to them about what's going on. It may not interest you whatsoever, but you need to know.
That's good. That's good. Good word there. Well, brother, I sure appreciate you. I appreciate your ministry to the next generation, which again is not just a Bryan Barano ministry. It is a First Baptist ministry. And we're all concerned about that. And we're all hopeful because we know that Jesus Christ said, I will build my church and the gates of hell are not stopping him. In just a few short years, these people will be the leaders of Gen Z will be the old fogies in the church. Like that's going to happen. And you know what? Here's what we know. The church will continue on.
Yes,
the church will continue on. And because Jesus said, I will build my church, is emphatic. It's going to happen. There's no question there. And so we are just diligent to remain faithful in our generation to serve God how God has called us. But hey, appreciate you, man. And appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, the millions and millions around the world that have tuned in. We are thankful for you and the different time zones represented and all of that kind of stuff. But hey, we're going to meet again on Tuesday, and I'll be talking about another interesting subject. I'm thinking about we did top 3 classic hymns. I'm thinking about top 3 modern hymns or praise songs, and they're basically top 3 modern songs. So anyway, that may be a great topic of discussion. Bryan,